this is not like a dramatic, like that judge should not be allowed to judge, period. There's no this is not hyperbole. I'm not joking around. I'm not joking at all. That person should not be able to judge another fight ever. That's how egregious that card is. Not one fight, not a single fight ever again. Okay? Your job, the only reason you're there is to be the objective observer who says this fighter won. You can't just flippantly get it wrong. And if you get it that wrong, you do not belong in the chair ever again, whether it's corrupt, incompetence, fan, or trolling. Never again, dude. Yeah, so we were in San Antonio live at the UFC last night. And so we got to see the whole thing live. And I'm going to share some insights that I had from being there live. And then also we're going to talk about this judging thing. Because this one, sometimes you see a scorecard and you can kind of go, wow, what an incompetent judge. Wow, they're terrible at their job. This is like I was a salesperson. My quota was $2 million for the year. And I did $40,000 in volume. And I was like, I don't know, man. I get to keep my job though, right? It's like, oh yeah, totally, dude. 40,000 of a $2 million target. You are killing it, dude. So I actually think that this performance last night on two of the cards would actually be equivalent to going into the negative. It's like, how much of your quota did you attain? It's like, I actually ended up giving away so many free samples that my contribution, in addition to my salary and every other thing, was that I actually cost the company 60 grand. You're like, wow, awesome. So you poisoned the sport because anyone who is looking at two specific scorecards and is not wondering, am I looking at corruption here? Am I looking at someone who is corrupting the sport? I mean, we're coming right off of the James Krause and Jeff Molina thing. And hey, guys, I know it's really distracting, when someone leaked a tape. Weird. There's a tape. It's like, oh gosh, guys, I didn't want to have to do this, but you know what? It turns out I'm bi, I'm bi, look over here. I'm bi. Don't look over here, fight fixing scandal. Don't think about that. No. Oh no, I didn't leak this. No, I didn't leak this video. No, I didn't want to have to do this. No, don't, what? Fight fixing? No. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. And yes, I know my haircut's broken. So, yeah, you just had the Krause and Molina thing. And so the UFC in general is under scrutiny from the public, right? Like the public, and then like the gaming boards and stuff. So you really want to look like you have like a clean operation, because the UFC can't control every part of the apparatus. Like they can't control whether or not Krause and Molina talk to some guy who's injured and they're all just do it, man, do it. And then they're like, hey man, he's going down in the first. Like what the UFC, how is that the UFC's fault? That's them doing that, right? Allegedly. And then, like judging, how could the UFC be like policing judges, right? And so it's the same thing. It's a sport, but it's doesn't mean the organization's involved, but people are watching the sport. And so when you see a scorecard, like, not to bury the lead, like the Chito one, like someone gave that fight to Chito Vera, 48-47. You have to ask yourself, what am I looking at exactly? Is this, because incompetence cannot explain that card as far as I'm concerned, because you would actually have to be blind. There's a few different theories that I'm going to lay out for what actually happened there, because it is one of a few things. And that's what we're going to talk about in this. And then we're going to talk about the other card that is so egregious that you're like, what on, again, like I said, what am I looking at exactly? I don't think incompetence can explain this. So before we get into it though, and then also I'll tell you guys some stories about last night. Thank you everybody who came up and said what's up and took pictures. That was super fun. Yeah, we'll go from there. But first, if you don't mind subscribing to the channel, I appreciate you guys. I have the best fans in the world. Everybody who comes up to me and says what's up when we go to these live shows, it just reminds me oh, I'm just talking to a bunch of people I would be friends with in real life. And so that has continued last night. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. If you guys don't mind subscribing, if you haven't yet, that would be incredible. That's the deal we make. It helps the channel. I don't charge anybody money. It's just here. All you have to do is just subscribe. You can watch all my stuff. So please do that if you don't mind. And ring the bell if you want to do that. And then like this video if you like it. And as a matter of fact, if you think that, how about you like the video if you think that the Chito Vera scorecard was so absurd that you have to do something to protest it. There you go. Just like the video, because I'm going to light these guys up for that. Anyway, so again, you got the Chito Vera one, and then you have another one, right? So we'll talk about the Chito Vera one in a second. So the other scorecard that is so egregious that I honestly, now I will say that on this one, I will throw this over the fence to you guys, okay? Because I will acknowledge that when you are physically at the event, it's not as good as watching it on television, right? Like you don't see things as clearly as you do when you're at home and you're listening to the, to the commentators, etc., right? So I will certainly acknowledge that. However, I don't think that you need someone helping you view it to know that in the first round of that fight, okay, Andrea Lee wrestle-fucked Macey Barber on a level that is not, there is no conversation. There is no fucking way that Macey Barber won that round. None. Okay? Unless this is a person who literally doesn't know a single thing about grappling. Okay? They think that a person who's in side control is in like a neutral position or something. Like, it's absurd. Absurd to have given Macey Barber, at least, unless there's something on television that I didn't see. To me, when they said 30-27 Barber, I was like, what? 30-27 Barber? You gave the first round to, and I mean, the second round was close, The third round, I definitely thought Andrea Lee won that. When they said, so it's split decision, and then the last one, and the last judge, 30-27, I'm like, oh, Andrea Lee. When they said 30-27, and we're waiting to hear who won the fight, if they were like, here, Jesse, how much do you want to bet that it's Andrea Lee? Now that you know it's a 30-27 card, how much do you want to bet that it's Andrea Lee? I would have been like, I don't know, castration against $1 million? Like, oh, you're going to bet your manhood against $1 million? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, this is a lock. There isn't a person on earth that could have scored that first round for Macey Barber, right? So if it's 30-27, we know for sure it's Andrea Lee, right? Right? Unless they just unless they were like, all right, who are we putting down for for the judges? They're all, what's Macey Barber's mother-in-law's last name? They're all, Miller. They're all, okay, well, so no one will realize that it's Macey Barber's mother-in-law. Just throw her in there. Wait, what? You know what I mean? Like, unless it's like Macey Barber's family member or someone who's like a secret super fan, or we're talking corruption somehow, right? Or we're talking corruption. I would say, and again, I will leave room on this one for maybe because I was there, I was missing something, but that's a real little one because that first round, come on, dude. Come on. Absurd. So that was that first one. Then we get to the other one, the Chito and Cory Sandhagen one, right? Oh, and I'll say this: what we saw in person, the crowd was not real hot on that decision, just to say the least. Like, you have a whole group, the crowd says everything. When you're there in person, the crowd really is like, whether a fight is good or not. You could have your eyes closed, not be watching the fights at all, and whether or not a fight is good. Whether or not a decision was good. Now, that's not necessarily. The only way that you don't know whether a decision was good is if the crowd's reaction is being influenced by one of the fighters being a huge fan favorite or whatever. If it's Paddy Pimblett and they're in the UK, then obviously you can't really take what the crowd does as a tell. But like Macey Barber against Andrea Lee, everyone was chanting Barber, and then still when they announced it, everyone's like, wait, what? So anyway, whatever. But with Chito and Sandhagen, okay, that scorecard going 48-47 Vera is the most ludicrous, egregious, corrupt, incompetent. It's indefensible, dude. There's no, someone needs to get that judge, sit them in a chair, tie them to the chair and go, explain yourself. Explain 48-47 Chito Vera. Dude, Sandhagen landed and I haven't checked this since last night, so my numbers might be off by 2 to 3 strikes in either direction. But if I'm remembering correctly, Chito Vera landed 73 total strikes to Sandhagen's 193. Okay? And if you're going to tell me that Chito's were much heavier, no, they weren't. Okay? There is no conversation here. That is such a... So here are my theories. You have one of 3 options, okay? One of 3 options, and that's it. These are the theories. Call them conspiracy theories. Call them whatever you want, okay? One is just total incompetence, which I can't get there for that one, dude. I cannot get there for that fight. It is not possible for me to get there on incompetence because no one could have possibly thought that Chito Vera won that fight. No one. And I'm talking round to round. I know how you score, okay? Like, I'm one of these guys that generally, I mean, not to like, I generally get these decisions right. You know, like when I look and I'm like, before these guys do these really detailed breakdowns, I'm usually right because I know how I know the round around. I feel like people don't like take each round individually. Like the good example would be like the Volkanovski and Holloway second fight, which was so close. And everyone was like, oh man, I really thought Holloway won that. I'm like, see, I didn't. I thought before I even looked at any significant breakdown, detailed breakdowns, I'm like, Holloway definitely won the first 2 rounds and he really decisively won those first 2 rounds. But dude, I think Volkanovski won 3-4-5, even though they weren't as decisive as the other. Like he won 3-4-5 and they're all 10-9 rounds. The scoring system's stupid, but I think that and that's exactly how it ended up being. It's like, but this one, each round, what you could have given maybe the 3rd round to Chito, maybe. And that's it, dude. That is it. That's it. So I can't give him incompetence because it's too incompetent because let's say that they gave the 3rd and the 5th to Chito because the last thing they saw was Chito coming forward and they're a complete brain dead moron. And so they're like, oh yeah, okay, give him the round. Which other round are you giving him? What's the other round you're giving him? Which one? 1, 2, or 4? What other round are you giving him? Sit in the chair and explain yourself. How did you come up with Chito Vera winning either the 1st, 2nd, or 4th round? Explain yourself. And by the way, if it's the same person that did the 48-47 Chito and the 30-27 Macey Barber, you should not let that person within 100 yards of a UFC facility, much less into a judge's chair. Because they're either blind, drunk, pranking all of us, or corrupt. Okay? Actually, there's 4 options. So number 1 is total incompetence. Number 2 is they are a secret fan of the fighter, right? They have a relationship with the fighter. They're a secret fan or something like that. Okay, that's option 2. Option 3 is corrupt, right? Corrupt. We all know, right? We all know corruption is a real thing. To act as if it's impossible that there was corruption involved is ridiculous, okay? So maybe corruption. Because, again, you can't explain this one away, dude. Not the Chito Vera one. You can't explain it away. There's no incompetence. No. And then the 4th one is they literally are trolling us, dude. And I just came up with that now. Maybe they're just trolling us. Like maybe they literally are just like, let's see what they say if we just turn in the most ludicrous fucking fight card or judge scorecard ever. Let's just see what they do. Let's stir up some shit, man. I mean, obviously Sandhagen's gonna win anyway, so let's just stir up some shit. Let's just let's say Chito won. And again, I cannot stress this enough. This is not like a dramatic. Like that judge should not be allowed to judge. Period. There's no this is not hyperbole. I'm not joking around. I'm not joking at all. That person should not be able to judge another fight ever. That's how egregious that card is. Not one fight, not a single fight ever again. Okay? Your job, the only reason you're there is to be the objective observer who says this fighter won of the 2 things. The stakes of winning or losing in the UFC are astronomical for every person in the organization, in the division. Like, you can't just flippantly get it wrong. And if you get it that wrong, you do not belong in the chair ever again, whether it's corrupt, incompetence, fan, or trolling. Never again, dude. There's no there was no margin of error that gets you to Chito Vera when he got outlanded 193 to 73. And again, I went through the rounds. Like, I know how to score. It's impossible. It is impossible to get there. And again, if that person is the same person, 30-27 Barber and 48-47, there's... So, that. Now, Sandhagen looked awesome. He's now officially Giselle's favorite fighter. I get, like, on the way down to San Antonio, now I'll tell you guys about the night. So, on the way to San Antonio, I was, like, prepping Giselle. I was like, so here are the two fighters. And I showed her Sandhagen stuff and Chito stuff, and she was like, she was stoked on Sandhagen. She was like, that guy is my favorite. And she liked Chito too, but I like both of them. But she said Sandhagen's her favorite. And then Sandhagen put on that performance, so now he's like solidified. That's her favorite guy. So my daughter loves Sandhagen, and so do I. Excellent work, my dude. But yeah, so I'm trying to think what else happened last night. Like, dude, I'll tell you this. Here's what I'll tell you. There are no kids there. Okay. I really thought that people brought kids to these things. I don't know why. Like, I felt like I had seen a bunch of kids at these things, right? And we get there, and I texted Gabrielle. I was like, Giselle is the youngest person here by 6 years. You know, like, she's 10. And I was looking around. I'm like, I do not see a single person who's under 16 here. Like, none, which was hilarious because it was fun. Like, I had a blast with her, and she had a blast, dude. She loved it. I mean, you know, she does jiu-jitsu tournaments. And so she's like, can I do this? Like, but just jiu-jitsu? I was like, yeah, in 1FC, man. 1FC, you could do this, just jiu-jitsu. But as people got drunker, right? Like, people, the guys in the seat, in the row right behind us were fucking blitzed, dude. Like, I mean, you guys know, I went to 8 shows last year. I've gone to plenty of shows before that. This is the first one we went to this year, but like, I mean, that's a big sample size. These were by far the rowdiest guys that I've ever had anywhere near us, dude. Like, they were the guy right behind Giselle screaming at the top of his lungs. So one of my jiu-jitsu training partners came up and said, like, he came to where we were, and so we were on the 2 end seats on the aisle. So I had Giselle straight on the aisle and me one inside. And my guy came down right here, and we were in the front row. So I just got out and said what's up to him. And so I was like 6 feet from Giselle, looking down on her, so I could see her, but she's got her back to him. But the guy behind her, this wasted ass guy, I'm behind him, and he's looking at this like 10-year-old girl who's by herself, and he tapped on her shoulder and started talking to her. And I'm literally talking to my buddy, and I'm like, okay, I'm talking to him, and I'm simultaneously thinking, like, in what scenario does this dude think it's cool to fucking like tap on the shoulder of a 10-year-old who's there by herself and just start talking in her ear, you know? So when I got back, I was like, what did that guy just say to you? She's like, he just asked me who I was rooting for. And I was like, all right, you know? And I'm like, all right, so I guess I don't have to, you know, put my fingers through his eyeballs, but like, what are you doing? It's just to demonstrate, like, these guys were screaming, dude. I was having a good conversation with a guy who was right behind me to the right, but I mean, it would have been annoying if it was me and Gabrielle. Me and my 10-year-old, I was like, man. Actually, it wasn't like that. It's just like, it's not like it was that bad. It's just the fact that I felt very protective of the kid in that environment. There's a fight. There was a fight in the crowd right after as we were leaving. And like on the way out, it was like on the way in, it was all like, Giselle, we're having a blast. On the way out, I could tell she was like, Daddy, why aren't we laughing? And it was because in my mind, I was like, if somebody makes I'm enveloping this kid in like, I will kill someone if anybody does anything that's going to endanger her, you know, because on the way out, there's like 1 million people, dude, you know, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, but it was awesome. Super fun night. We actually ended up at a gas station late night. Another thing, like, you know, we had to get gas, and then, so we go into the place to get water, and it was like late. And as soon as we got in there and I looked around this place, I was like, what the fuck are we doing here, dude? Like, this is not like a safe place for me to have my 10-year-old late at night. I mean, I had a gun in my pocket, but nonetheless, you know, it's like, what are we doing here? And then on the way out, some dudes were like, hey, and I looked and they're like, Jesse on fire. I was like, oh, what's up, man? So yeah, I mean, the streak is alive. all good people, dude. And you could tell they were just like, hey, what's up, man? Jesse on fire. Oh, he's here with his kid. Like, just want to say what's up. How are you? I was like, what's up, man? And they were awesome. But there were other people in that place that I was like, not that they were, it's just people that you look at and you're like, all right, so what's the threat level of this person? It's not like anybody's like super high, but you're like, that person is much more likely to be a problem than any person that's just randomly on the street. And then some other guy came in with his hands in his pocket looking all shady. And you get like, when you have a 10-year-old with you, you're like, all right, so if this guy pulls out a gun, I need to I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I need to make a decision on whether to smoke him or to, just let this whole thing happen, because it's not like I have my 10-year-old with me. Your assessment of a situation is not what it normally would be, because your first priority has to be like, make sure this kid doesn't get hurt. So being a hero is secondary to make sure my kid doesn't get hurt. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking. Like, this is what I'm thinking about in the gas station. It's like, all right, so if this guy pulls a gun out of his pocket, I'm going to smoke him or not. Anywho, it's neither here nor there. But yeah, man, we had a blast. And man, that judging is so ludicrous, dude. Just ludicrous. Ludicrous. If they would have given that fight to Chito Vera, I think that Dana actually might have killed someone, But that's probably enough. That's probably enough. We had a blast, dude. And thank you, everybody who came up and said hi. Like I said, anybody who ever sees me in public, I love when people come up and say what's up, because it always ends up being people I would hang out with anyway. So anyway, love you guys. That's what I got. Peace.